Today, I want to dive into a topic we all encounter at some point, whether that is in a conversation with someone from our family, coworker, friend, loved ones, or even someone on the internet that we don't know, or a business partner. And I'm gonna drop what we're gonna talk today about, and I don't want you to shy away from that word because that word, it consists out of two, sounds a little bit like, oh my God, but it's actually something that you need to spot in conversation, something that you need to handle if you want to become more assertive, if you don't want to be manipulated in conversations, and when you want to be on top of that conversation instead of just, feeling like someone is trumping over you. What we talk about today is ad hominem attacks, and it's important if you're in the middle of a heated debate or having a disagreement with anybody, or just scrolling through a comment section online, because those personal jabs can be incredibly frustrating and, let's be honest, pretty sneaky. We'll explore what these attacks really are, how they pop up in our conversations, in your conversations, and it's not only that this will happen to you, you will also be an ad hominem attacker. That's why I want you also to be aware of how you are responding in heated debates or arguments. And we will also dive into strategies, how to handle them without letting those ad hominem attacks shake your confidence. But before we jump into today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast and leave a comment. Your support means the world to me, and I'd love to hear also your thoughts. So without further ado, let's get into it. So for those who would love to know what ad hominem actually means, and for those who had Latin, know that ad hominem is a Latin, it's like actually Latin, it's a Latin word. And it translates to the person or against the person in English. So for those who don't know Latin but want to know what ad hominem means, because I don't want to just drop fancy words, I just also want to understand, or want you to understand where it comes from, and that it's just a fancy word that in English translates to against the person or to the person. So this is very important for me, for you to know. Ad hominem attacks, it sounds really wild, like, oh, it's a personal attack. But in our everyday conversation that you have with whoever it is, you are not only also the one using ad hominem attacks, and very often, to 90% of the time, I know my clients use them unconsciously. I personally use them 90% unconsciously. And I'm all here for you being authentic. I also want you to create a very kind world where we are not, being trumped over or like steamrolled over, but where you are sitting in the saddle of the horse, taking over the reins, and can create a life and create opportunities in your personal or professional life that really help you to have a meaningful life. And for that to happen, authenticity, vulnerability, and driving those characteristics to gain respect will help you get there. And, often when we are diving into communication tips, I bring them on so that you're prepared for them. But I also want to frame that ad hominem attacks is also something that you might use often, casually, rarely, it doesn't matter. I just want you to become aware of all those things, because the more aware you become, the better person you are in debates. And I mean, if you are similar to me, you might go into debates and then attack the other person personally without even wanting to, but kind of, you don't know how to actually debate. I did that all the time. Or when you are the one being attacked, that you can spot that and not taking the bait. Because, ad hominem attacks is something that most of the times when it happens unconsciously, and even if it happens consciously, if you don't have the strategies how to not only spot them, but how to turn them around, you will take the bait and then you are off topic. Then you're actually debating personal attacks or people attacking something in you, or vice versa, you and the other person. And that's just creating tension. And authenticity, vulnerability, and the respect that I want you to have and to gain in conversations will help to foster deeper and more meaningful connections. Because my whole brand is about authenticity, vulnerability, gaining respect. That's all for creating deeper connections. So I will not take you now back to a conversation I had with my husband just a couple of days ago. And one that completely threw me off until I realized, in hindsight, that this was an ad hominem attack. So I was in a heated discussion a couple of weeks ago with my husband. And I really appreciate him and he appreciates me. But of course, you know how it goes in a marriage. We are not agreeing on everything, and that is totally fine. So we had a debate where actually you really care about the person on the other side, like in my case with my husband, and you're just hoping of some kind of mutual understanding. And so we were going forth and back, exchanging points on a topic, when suddenly, bam, instead of just addressing what I was actually saying, he said to me, "You always want to have to be right, don't you?" And I was remembering that feeling in my stomach drop, because that wasn't about the argument anymore. That was about me. And here's the thing. I took the bait. I got defensive. I started explaining how I wasn't always trying to be right, how I actually valued different perspectives. But before I knew it, we weren't even talking about the original topic anymore. I had completely lost control of the conversation. And that's when I realized this wasn't about logic, facts, or perspectives. This was about control. And if you've ever found yourself in a similar spot, maybe now reflecting back on similar conversations you had with loved ones, friends, coworkers, where a discussion suddenly turns into an attack on you, then you already know this isn't just annoying, it's designed to shut you down. And today I will frame it in a way that, when ad hominem attacks happen to you, but I also want to bear in mind that you might do it as well. Okay? And today we're diving into those attacks. So what they are, how they work, and how to shut them down without letting them get under your skin, losing the control, or even in worst case, attacking the other person too. Trust me, the best way to win in conversations is to stop playing it all together. And we are here not to win an argument, but we just want to be here to win for all of us, so that, every conversation is a conversation that connects you deeper and closer to the other person, because that's a win in every conversation. So let's get into what an ad hominem attack is. In simple terms, it's when someone ignores the actual point you're making and attacks you instead. So instead of engaging with your argument, they try to discredit you by making it personal. And here's the tricky part. Ad hominem attacks aren't always as obvious as name calling. It's easy to spot that an ad hominem attack if someone calls you an idiot or a dumb person. Those ad hominem attacks sometimes are wrapped in concern or a disguised joke or framed as helpful advice. So I want to repeat that because it is important, because ad hominem attack sounds like, oh, someone is attacking me. And I will get that when someone attacks me. But believe me, you won't always. Because again, ad hominem attacks can show up as concern, as a disguised joke, which is awful, and framed as helpful advice. So just 3 examples that I want to undermine my previous points. So an ad hominem attack can sound like the following. You always have an opinion. But what have you actually accomplished? Well, of course you'd feel that way. You're just too sensitive. Why should we even listen to you? You've made mistakes before. So see what's happening? In those three statements, they're shifting the focus away from the actual discussion. So even now, me telling you those examples, you just don't even know what was the context of the conversation. There's not even a point that's hinting to the conversation. So they shifted away from the actual discussion and onto you as a person, hoping you will get defensive or feel disqualified from even having an opinion. And let's be real. This can be so tempting to respond. And if you knew me a few years ago, or even half a year ago, you would see I'd always take the bait. So when someone takes a jab at my intelligence, experience, or character, in lightning speed, I'd jump into defending myself. And it's natural to want to defend yourself. It's an innate response that we feel like, oh my God, someone says something against my intelligence, my experience, my wisdom maybe, or character, and off we go. And the problem with defending yourself, that I know from my experience, it always puts you in a lower position. You're playing a game that you actually don't want to play. And it's not actually like, as soon as you defend yourself, you already lost. And, someone defending themselves is exactly what the other person wants. They want to pull you into a side battle instead of actually addressing the actual issue. And that can be a tactic. It can be that this person that you have a conversation or maybe a heated debate or argument with knows that actually what they're trying to accomplish here isn't making sense, or they feel like they don't have actually the better arguments. So they might consciously, unconsciously pull you into an ad hominem attack so that you go off on a side tangent and you are finding yourself defending your character instead of your argument, your points. And this podcast is really about having tangible tips that you can implement, because I don't want this to be just an informative podcast of like, okay, now I know how to spot an ad hominem attack. I even know what that is. But now it's about how you can handle it like a pro. And I have like 4 points that I want to discuss with you that I have jotted down on a notebook, because I feel like once you are aware of it, the next step is like, how do I handle them? How do I not get into the trap of defending myself? And it took me some time to really rewire that unconscious and preconditioned rewiring of me just immediately jumping into defense. And that might also be for you, or maybe not. Maybe it's easy for you. Maybe you are already a person that keeps her cool when someone attacks you personally. But I know from my perspective, I've been taking that like I had really to do hard work on it, and still have. But now when I have a conversation with my husband and it turns into an argument or in a debate, and we debate a lot because we are not agreeing on a few things. I mean, we do on the fundamental things in life. But like politically, we're not always on the same coin or side, which is totally cool, because I don't need to agree with anyone that I love. So, okay, so let's jump in. So first of all, it's awareness. Clock it. The moment someone drags you into the ring instead of the topic, boom, 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 ping, 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 that's an ad hominem attack. So recognizing it in the moment is already half the battle. So instead of feeling personally attacked, see it for what it is, a cheap tactic to derail the conversation. And again, as I said before, maybe the other person doesn't have the best arguments or need to derail the conversation or distract because they just don't know how to further debate. The next thing is don't take the bait. Think of it like a fisherman dangling a worm hoping you will bite. Let the bait hang there and keep gliding right past it. When you defend yourself personally, you are no longer in control of the conversation, but they are. Instead of getting sidetracked, keep the focus on the actual point. So if someone says, "You're too young to understand this," you can respond with, "My age doesn't change the facts. Let's get back to the actual issue." Or if someone responds to you with, "You always have an opinion, but what have you actually accomplished?" You can respond with, "My track record isn't the topic here. Let's stick to the actual discussion." Or something that you might have heard more often than ever is, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're emotional." A great response to this would be, "Emotions don't change the facts. Let's focus on the argument itself." So you see, you are addressing what they are attacking you with, and then you turn it to say, "Well, that doesn't matter here. My emotions, my age, my track record doesn't matter here. So let's focus and get back on the argument, on the point, on the debate itself." And that is actually a very elegant and easy switch from now going down the rabbit hole of my emotions, my age, or whatever experience the person attacks me that I don't have, or supposedly, allegedly I don't have, to going back to the actual topic. And I love that, because if someone said to me, "Well, you're just too emotional or too sensitive," I love having that response of like, "Hey, my sensitivity, my emotions don't matter here at all. They don't change the facts. It's not the topic here. My sensitivities aren't the topic. Let's get back to the actual argument itself." That is such an elegant way to change that, to spot and acknowledge that personal like this ad hominem attack, and then getting it back to the topic, because you are de-weaponizing them, disarming them from the attack to, "Oh, let's get back to the topic," and they can't go back again to your emotions or age or whatever they attack you with. And the next is redirect with confidence. So I don't want you just to ignore the attack. So this is not about, "Oh, I'm ignoring the personal attack," but you can shut it down without engaging emotionally. And that's what I mean, because when you defend yourself, you are obviously reacting emotionally and not really logically. So if you have already the confidence to address it, you can also say, "That feels like a personal dig. If you want to discuss the actual topic, I'm happy to continue." Or a favorite of mine is also, "Let's keep this about the argument, not about me." And that is so personal, so perfect, because obviously you will really turn this around and address it. You really address it for what it is, and you turn it around back to, away from me, back to the argument, and they can come at you again. And the great thing is about, responding to, sorry, I've lost my track. So about having the awareness of the ad hominem attack and don't take the bait is really like the elegance. There's like, I'm spotting it, but I'm also able to either address it, saying, "Hey, I understand this is a personal dig. Let's go back to the argument. This is not about me." And that is just, I've had this honestly, that works so well. Every time I have an argument with my husband and he comes with an ad hominem attack, as I did in the past too, so we are all guilty of it, it's actually really redirecting. And once you do it, they kind of unconsciously get the message that, "Oh, wow, she did not react emotionally, so that doesn't work." It's then rare that they come up with another ad hominem attack. And even if they would come a second time in the same argument, same debate, you know how to handle it. Acknowledge it, like clock it, don't take the bait, and redirect. And again, if someone is stubborn and, keeps making it personal, you are allowed to walk away. So it's about setting a boundary if needed. Because not every discussion deserves your energy. And if someone just doesn't stop the ad hominem attack, you can say, hey, I'm open to a real conversation, but if it's just personal attacks, I'm out. And that's perfect because you give them a choice. Hey, will you stop the personal attack and we make that about the argument, of the topic itself? Or I'm out of here. So know that you have a permission slip to set a boundary, and if nothing works, they keep on personally attacking you, you know that your energy is wasted here, and then just shut the conversation down. And I also want you to stay in your power. So this whole podcast today is really helping you to stay in your own personal potential and power, because that is the biggest flex. Not letting it get to you, not being goaded into a personal attack and you defending yourself. Ad hominem attacks are designed to make you feel insecure. But when you stay calm, when you can spot them, you don't take the bait, you respond with confidence, and you set a boundary if needed. So you don't engage in personal drama and keep control of the situation. You win every time. And again, it's not about winning, like, oh, I'm right and the other person is wrong. This is not what I mean when I say win. But win in a way that you get out of that conversation and either feel really good about yourself because you know that you have actually responded with wisdom, with assertiveness, and also with kindness, because you're not counter-attacking, you're not also like switching to personal attacks. And in the best case, you can finish this argument, this debate with the other person, and feel more connected to each other. And that doesn't mean you need to agree on anything. You can have two different opinions and you lay out the points and you have a mutual understanding where everyone is at. And that is a win. That's what I mean with win. And my final thought is ad hominem attacks can be sneaky, but you can learn to spot them so that these attacks lose their power. And it is really about, instead of reacting emotionally, stay grounded. Keep the focus on the actual discussion and don't let personal jabs throw you off course. And I want you to understand that these ad hominem attacks can be disguised. So it's not sometimes as easy to spot them, but they can be disguised as concern, as I said before. So, which might sound on the surface helpful, but are actually meant to undermine or discredit you. So I want to give you now in the end a few examples when an ad hominem attack is disguised as a concern or joke. So for example, someone could just say, I'm just worried that you are getting too worked up over this. So what's really happening? They are implying that your emotions make your argument invalid rather than engaging with your actual point. And the best way how to respond to this is like, hey, I appreciate your concern, but let's focus on the discussion itself. Another thing could be that someone is concerned and says to you, I just don't want people to think you're being difficult, for example. What's happening here is they're subtly framing you as the problem instead of addressing your argument. And, you can say, let's keep this about the issue, not about how I'm coming across, okay? And for example, disguised as a joke, I just want to, give you some more examples before we close off today so that you get that some ad hominem attacks can be disguised as concern as a joke. Someone could say, wow, someone's feeling very passionate about this, and smirks. And I had that very often. And what's happening here is they're trivializing your stance by making it about your emotions, not your argument. So you can respond like, hey, passion isn't a problem, but dismissing real points, the real point of the debate is. So let's get back on the topic. Or someone could just say, oh, here we go again, Professor Martina. It happened to me very often when I was younger, and it was happening here that they are mocking your credibility or your knowledge instead of engaging with what you are saying. So you can just respond to this. If you don't agree, let's talk about why instead of making it personal. And that brings them back to the actual topic. And I love that. So next time someone tries to throw you an ad hominem your way, don't waste your breath defending yourself. Instead, smile, sidestep the nonsense, and keep your focus where it belongs. That's how you keep your confidence, your power. And trust me, nothing frustrates them more than you are not taking the bait. I really hope with this podcast episode today that you have now the information and also kind of a step-by-step steps basically how to dismantle, how to spot an ad hominem, because they are more often happening than you might be aware of it. And I wish I knew about this. I would have listened to this podcast a few years back, because I have been a really hothead when it comes to debates. I've always issued ad hominem to other people. I got them myself as well. And I have left conversations often very hurt and very resentful. And I'm pretty sure a lot of my other people, like debate partners or people I had conversations or arguments with, felt the same about me. And resentment towards someone else creates always gaps. It creates disconnection. And we feel more lonely than ever, because the older you get, the more important it is to have really the right people in your environment, the right people with you. And today's episode, please re-listen to this episode. Listen to it over and over again if you need. And I want you for the next week to have a look whether in your next argument, debate, you can spot ad hominem attacks, maybe also in you, or you reflect about previous conversations you had or arguments you had where that could have had occurred and how you could have reacted differently with all the examples I gave. If you have any questions, if you need, if you have a specific example where you say, hey, is this an ad hominem? How would you respond to this? Hit reply at info@femmagical.com and let me know about that. Or you leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Another way how to do that is sending me a DM at Femmagical as well. I'm happy to connect with you and dive into ad hominem attacks that you give me as an example, or where you have just question how you would. So if this episode hit home, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you've ever been hit with an ad hominem attack, I'd love to hear, as I said before, how you handled it. And if you want to support this episode, if you want to support my work, please subscribe to this podcast, leave a comment, or forward it to a person that you feel like need to hear what we discussed today. Until next time, my friend, keep being you, keep it authentic, and I'll talk to you in a week. Bye.